like I said, many clients who I've seen have come for top level issues. They may have been referred by their workplace for stress management, and actually it's getting to the core that this adverse experience has happened that has not been articulated, it's not been spoken about. And I think you are right, the sensationalization of sex offenders, and it means they do get the spotlight. And actually, what support is there for individuals who are trying to gain self-insight to deal with the legacy of what they've been through is very minimal. We know so many charities are losing funding. Women's Aid have lost one of their courses that was particularly important and helpful. So what is the way forward? Like you said, partnerships, new ways of working to help individuals to move on, to heal and move on.
I think it's also, there is some benefit coming from the fact that we've seen these revelations in Hollywood and in London too, because the fact that we're finding, whereas perhaps there may have been a thought before that there are only people from a certain section of society who are affected by this. Yeah. The reality is that it permeates all sections, and it doesn't matter age or gender, where you are now, where you were as a child and what you were trying to achieve. But then, of course, we've also seen adults being sexually abused too, as highlighted by what we've heard, the revelations about the allegations in Hollywood and also in London too. So perhaps we can take some encouragement from that with some high-profile individuals coming forward and talking about what's happened to them, that others in other walks of life may be encouraged, feeling with those people, those well-known faces can stand up in front of the media and talk about it, then it's okay for me, because the comfort must come from the fact that the vast majority of people who are not celebrities, that they can come forward privately and confidential. They don't need to stand up on the public stage and say, me too. They can come to you privately and seek your support or my support and guidance without having to make that public statement. That is completely unnecessary. But I understand why those celebrities have at this stage decided it's appropriate to speak openly about it, because they've got a specific objective in mind, and that's entirely understandable.
Yeah, and I think there's also the challenge of it happening many years ago, historical offences, and the shame that might come around that. Why didn't you speak up earlier? And actually the nature of the offence is that people become silenced. So it's about understanding that goes part in part with that. And if you choose to say, whenever you choose to say, it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll have people come to me and want to pursue some action. They're not really sure what they want to do, but they want to do something to obtain justice in whatever form that may well be. And when they come forward, they say, well, how can I prove this happened? I was a child. It occurred 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. But the law in the last few years has adapted. It's adapted and realised it's got to change in order to recognise the effects of being abused at such a young age and how that will prevent someone coming forward for many years, and the difficulties that can subsequently create in terms of proving that actually took place. But the courts are very able to do that. If the right evidence is presented to a court in various fashions, then the court is able to make a determination about whether it did or did not take place. And if being satisfied it did take place, then importantly for people I act on behalf of, they are able to receive some recompense, financial compensation for what happened to them. Now, financial compensation on its own is, to me, not the ideal solution, but the law cannot provide an alternative to remedy to that. That's all there is. But for me, the benefit of being able to recover financial compensation for what's happened means that out of some of that compensation, they can do several things. One which is to get training, to get back into the workplace, to improve their circumstances, perhaps seeking support from elsewhere, from health professionals in terms of to be able to sort of form better and long-lasting relationships, and just generally be able to deal with the effects of the abuse and not allow, that baggage from the past to continue to dominate their lives into the future. So I think whilst, the law has adapted, and in one sense, the law is a poor remedy because it can only provide, for the individual, for the survivor, financial recompense, but it's what that person can do with it, particularly to obtain health professional support from the private sector on an ongoing or long-term basis, because I think you'll know better than I do. The idea of half a dozen or a dozen sessions, however effective, isn't really going to be long enough. And particularly when it's most likely that however good the support is, there is always a risk going forward in years to come that something will occur that will cause the individual to trip, fall over again, stumble, and require further support from someone like you. And therefore it's important that there are sufficient funds available so they can continue to just pick up the phone whenever they need it, come to you and say, look, can I talk to you about this issue because something's happened in my life and I now just need to reflect on what's happened, just get me back on track again.
And I've witnessed many a time a client explore a sexual assault, and actually that in of itself has freed them. And they may have come back down later on down the road, but there was something about being able to really articulate the minutiae of what happened that has freed them in ways that potentially we both could have never imagined. And I think, there is so much about finding your voice, empowering yourself, and making the choice to speak your truth.
Yeah, and the joy for me is when I've acted for someone towards the end of the case and the matter is resolved, is that they do feel that now empowered. They've had justice. It can be a combination of justice, a claim for compensation, or it could be also in terms of a criminal prosecution has taken place where the individual has been found guilty and they've been sent to prison. That recognition that it did take place, it did happen to me, and that someone is going to pay the consequence of it, that lifts a heavy weight from them. And I think that, alongside with the sort of support that you can provide them with, means that they do then look to the future and think, I can now face this or deal with this in a much better way than I would have otherwise have done if I just continued to bury it within myself and not talk to anyone about it. Because although I can understand why not talking at all, couldn't think that means I'm not having to open up and I feel better about it. And to say it requires that courage to come forward and talk about it. And there will be some pain initially. I think you and I like to think on a longer term basis that the individuals who do open up are better for it.
Most definitely.
It's just, it will stop having that detrimental impact on their day-to-day lives.
I often think of it like a splinter. It goes in and it hurts, and to get it out hurts, but actually there's a healing process, and you have to go through that pain for the healing to take place. So it's sometimes the worst fear is in our minds, but actually it's through the pain that the healing takes place, where individuals then can make informed choices, become aware of how their unconscious has shaped them, and choose to live different lives.
I mean, there is clearly a lot to think about during this Sexual Abuse Awareness Week, and I have little doubt that you and I will be talking again, probably this time next year, again about how the media and others, and the NHS and private healthcare providers have responded and how they continue to support survivors of childhood sexual abuse. But for now, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Malcolm.